Hi, welcome to Journal 365, 365 days of working in our art journals. And I wanted to just say up front that that doesn't mean that we're going to be creating a new page each day. You may work for a whole week on a page, depending on how much time and how involved your page becomes. But the whole idea behind this, the thought of this class, was to encourage journaling in some form, big or small, as a daily part of your creative life. And so for the first page, I wanted to do something really ultra simple, but have it be something that you can just take off with. So I chose just the simple number 1 as the journal prompt for our first pages that we're going to work on. And what I'm going to do is I did not pre-plan my page. I'm going to do, just work on a page on camera and talk you through the different things that I'll do. And I don't know exactly how this page is going to turn out in the end and where it's going to take me, but that's part of the process of journaling that I want to share with you. The first thing that I did was open up my box of, ephemera. And this is stuff that I gather from around the house and some, vintage ephemera, just daily things that that come in the mail or the newspaper. Love the newspaper because it's really easy to collage with the type of paper it is. And so what I do a lot of times is I'll just, if a little headline or a couple of words catch my eye, I just rip them out and I throw them in this box. And then when I'm looking for something for a journal page, then I can just pull things out. And I would really, really like to encourage you with our journals this year to try to start focusing on things from your daily life that you can incorporate into your journal rather than however nice they are, the collage type sheets that you can buy with, really cool designs. You can use those, and I'm going to use a little bit today, but try really hard to start incorporating the things from your life into your journal, and it will have a lot more meaning for you. So what I did was I opened my box with the idea of 1 in my mind. I found a few images, and for these pages, I would really like you to pare down and have 1 or at the most maybe 2 things on your page. So I chose this, this little phrenology head, and I thought that would be nice because this is the start of my journal, and it's about all the things going on inside of my head. So I thought that would be great for a page, and I'm just going to have 1 simple item on that page. And on the opposing page, I like the little phrenology hand type thing, the little steampunk kind of look. And then this word jumped out at me, is quest. And I'm on a quest for finding more meaning in my journaling. And so that's what I'm going to start with on this page. And taking some soft gel medium matte. I like the matte better than gloss. I use it all the time. Okay, so it was glued on there a little bit. Okay, I'm going to just use it off the lid. And I keep a scruffy brush to use for my gel medium as my paintbrushes get nastier progressively as I'm working with them. They end up becoming gel brushes, and then when they can't be used for that anymore, they get thrown out after being misused. Okay, so I'm just going to paint the back of my image, and I always paint the paper that I'm gluing first, because when you do that, it softens up the paper, helps it become a little limp, and it adheres better. And then I'm going to paint the page where I'm going to put the image with some more gel medium. And I like my stuff stuck down really well because I don't like things peeling up. Even if it's just in my journal, I'm still kind of picky about the gluing process. And I'm just going to lay this in here. And I always kind of rub it a little bit with my fingers first to get sure that there's a contact on everything. And the little corners, you can run your paintbrush under if they're not completely adhered. Okay, and then I would go over the top of it with a layer of gel. Like that. And just work out the bubbles. Okay, that's glued down. And then over here, think about your placement. You know, think about composition a little bit, but not overly. This is for experimenting. And so you want to think about placement, but you also want your mind to be free. And a lot of times your mind will just know. Your creative eye will see where things should be placed. And to me, journaling is a little bit about working maybe faster than you would in real-time art project mode, because you want that. The faster you work, the more you're forcing your mind to just be creative outside of the box kind of thing. So, and then quest. I think I'm going to do it this way. And then lay that down, and you can always use your paintbrush as a tool to pick wet things up too. Okay, so that's it for my collage items on this page. Put your brush in some water to make sure it doesn't dry on there. And the next thing I'm going to do is take some titanium white paint, and we're working fast and free here, so let's do this. I'm going to get a brush nice and wet. Not sopping wet, but nice and wet. And I'm going to add a little paint directly on the page. Like that. And I'm going to work that out. And I'm going to go a little bit over the collage items, but not completely covering them up. Working fast. And use your fingers if you need to move stuff around. And I'm just putting a little bit of a base coat of paint on here. It's not completely covering the back page, and you can see I'm making my lines pretty much go the same way, up and down. Okay, and I'm going to do the same over here. Add water as you need. And I'm going to go around this little head, and I actually want the writing at the top to kind of fade into the background a little bit, so that's what I'm going to do, is paint over that paper, incorporate that into the background. Okay, put your paintbrush in some water and wash it out. So now we have just, a couple of little collage items, and we have the white paint. And at this stage, even before the paint is completely dry, I'm going to take my graphite pencil and I'm going to journal some thoughts onto the page, right into the wet paint, and maybe at an angle, maybe a couple of different directions, and just let that sit until it dries. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to turn the camera off while I write, just because it'll take me some time and I want to be able to move around the page, and then we'll turn it. Okay, so I have, with my woodless graphite pencil, I just quickly journaled some writing, and it all had to do with my word quest. And so, and I did a couple of different kinds of writing. I did some of my journal scrawl, which is practically illegible, and then some block printing, a little bigger over here. So I like to vary up the writing style a little bit. And remember, this is all really fast and loose. I'm not measuring anything. I'm not writing lines to write on. I'm going for some really authentic journaling, not a collage that I'm going to hang on the wall. This is journaling for me. So now that that's done, and the paint is pretty dry, and the next thing that I'm going to do is create a resist on here so that the additional layers of paint won't stick. And one way that you can do that, there's several ways. You can use liquid frisket, which is a masking fluid. You can use, I'm going to use a wax crayon, and the reason that I'm going to use a wax crayon today is because Easter's getting closer, and you can grab one of these out of your Easter egg coloring kit. After the kids are done doing their eggs, snatch that little clear wax crayon. These were great for just doing a really quick resist on your page. And what I'm going to do is, with this, I'm going to write a couple of words on here. You could do a design. You can do anything with it. So, and then what it'll do is it'll leave that white still showing. So I'm going to do it right here. Okay, and you won't know what that word is because you don't know what it is until I paint over it. Okay, so we've done that. And then the next thing I may do is just take, if you've taken one of my classes before or seen any of my videos, you know I use these little dauber bottles full of paint. They're just so easy. And all it is a bingo dauber. And I have the link on my site. And I mix about 1 part fluid acrylic to 2 parts water, and then 1 part of acrylic glazing medium, and I use acrylic glazing medium liquid satin. It's a golden product, and so that's all in there. And what the glazing liquid does is retard the drying process a little bit, so they don't dry up. The tops, you can see the top is nice and wet. I've had this filled up for a year probably. And honestly, and I think I've refilled it 1 time. You use very little paint this way. It makes your paint go just so much farther. It's really easy to apply, easy to move around. You can use a baby wipe to move it, or your fingers, or a paintbrush. And it's just it's a nice way to add some paint to your page, you know, in a really easy manner. So what I'm going to do is go right over what I just did with the mask so that you can see that. And I'm going to take my wet paintbrush and go blend that paint out. And I'm using my paintbrush this time because I'm going for a little bit more of a streaky look. And you can see I took the paint and I put some over here too. Really have your eye follow that paint around the page. And then add some over here. I probably shouldn't have added that paint quite so fast, but now you can see what I wrote. I wrote Naked Truth, which echoes this right here. I'm going to add a little more paint down here. So anyway, that's a really easy, fun way to add a resist to your page. Makes it really just nice little thing to do. Okay, add this color over here, and you can see fast and easy. Okay, got a little color going on the page. Now you could blend that out with a baby wipe like I've shown in some of my other classes. I don't have a baby wipe right here right now. I'm all out, so I'm using my paintbrush, and that just shows you can use anything that you have. You could use a wet paper towel even, or a rag. Now at this point I like to let the colors dry in between, because if I was to put another color on top, it would blend, and I don't always want that look. I like personally to layer colors dry, because then you get that true color showing through. And it's a back and forth process. I want these pages to be mostly white. That's what I'm going for here. So I'm going to show you how I get that look but still have some color coming through. By letting it dry. So we have a white background. We have, this is nickel azo gold mixed with transparent yellow iron oxide. That's what's in here. So it gives you a really nice, pretty gold kind of antique-y looking color. So we'll let that dry now, and then we'll go on to add some more color. Okay, even though these pages aren't going to have much color on them, I do want them to have texture. So I'm going to achieve that by layering some different things in between paint layers, some different textures. This is a piece of cardboard, and I've used this over and over. You can see it's already all painted up. I've used it over and over and over again, and it's a great little thing to add just a little touch. And I don't hit all of the lines when I do this, so it's not always the same image. I like this because it's a corner, piece of cardboard, and so that is really great for getting into different the different corner areas of your page. And all it does is give a very faint line, which is just kind of a cool effect. And sometimes do it like several times over the same spot even will give you, see, I'm not like trying to get paint on every part of it either. Do it several times in one area, walk it off, and it gives you just little lines that are kind of cool. Cheap little texture tools. That's another thing that I really want to bring out, is making out our own tools to do our journaling, because then your pages, you know, aren't just using other people's artwork, which is fine. Not saying anything against it, and if that's how you want to start out, that's completely fine. But I challenge you to look at what, you know, look at what you're creating and try to go a little bit beyond your comfort zone and use some things that you have laying around, so that you don't have to, your page will be unique and it'll be just like you, an individual. Okay, now I'm going to take the nickel azo gold mixed with transparent yellow iron oxide. I'm going to take that again and just add just a touch of stenciling. Now, when I do this with the paint, because I like sequin waste, but I don't like dark sequin waste. So when you do it with the paint, you get a little bit of a different, because it's with the dauber bottle like this, because it will soak under a little bit, and blotting it off. It gives you just a slightly different texture than if you were doing it your normal way. You get a little bit of the lines on there. I love that look. It looks like a little honeycomb. So I'm just going to add a little bit more. And I kind of try to do a different shape every time with it, because I don't want it to be consistent, and I never want it to look like a square, so I don't use that. Daub off more in some areas than others. And I'm going just over kind of the gold parts. A little of this goes a long ways. And I always think, you know, pretty much less is more in a lot of this stuff. So try to just hit a few areas. This is giving some really nice texture. I like that a lot. And I like, you know, using the paint. Sometimes I use the cat's eye chalk inks, and that's a really soft look. But then other times using the paint, it just, you know, like you can see, I love that little outline effect that it's giving, because this is a really thin paint, and that's why it's doing that. But I like that. So, okay, we've got a little more texture going on, and I'm going to let that dry really well before we do anything else. And you can see my resist is still holding up, and that's awesome. In fact, my T up here needs just a little more oomph, so rub a little more paint on that, and that'll bring that T back out, because I don't want to lose my naked truth there. Okay, so here we go. We're getting there. I'm gonna let that dry for a few minutes. Okay, now this is dried. So I'm just using a dauber bottle again and going over with a little white. This white is really, really watered down, so it's, in fact, it's not even what it is. I reused a dauber bottle that I had from other paint that I didn't like. In fact, it's not even white enough, so we'll just use a little white. And sometimes, I like to just kind of get in there with my finger, because it covers it a little better, and you can make it streaky and just move around that paint. And then this time with the white, I want to go over a little bit of my writing. Remember, there's no rules on this, so you do whatever you want to do, but I don't want all of my writing showing. I wrote what I wanted to write. I know what's on there, but I don't need to, you know, leave it all out there. And I do that a lot. I'll write on and see how I'm kind of going in there, but I I don't want to lose things on my page, but I don't want them all just right out there either. So I like to paint over things. This is the messy part. It's kind of fun. Fingers are great tools. Okay. So you can see it's just layering the colors back and forth. We started with white, used another color, go back to white. And we'll do that back and forth through this whole process. And then just paint, it's just straight fluid acrylic right to the page. Sometimes it's hard to talk and talk and paint at the same time. Okay, a little bit more here. Okay, and then I'm gonna also let this dry. And what I'm doing while I'm videotaping this, just in case you don't know, I'm turning off the camera and I'm letting things dry, and I'm working on other projects that I have going on, and this is exactly how I journal in real life. I do a layer and then I go do something else, and then I come back and I'll do another layer and go do something else. This is very much journaling as it happens. So so try it. Leave your journal out while you're working on other projects, and then you can just go back and forth to it. The other thing that I'm going to do real quick while this is still wet, we made the white lines. Now I'm going to make a few just back and forth with the same two colors. Make a few of these right into that wet paint. And while the paint's wet, and see how I just move it around. And then while that paint's still wet, you can even blend some of those out if you want to. And just there gives it a little bit of texture, going back and forth with the same tools, same colors. Okay, and then we're going to let this dry for a little bit. Okay, the white's pretty much dry on there, so I'm going to add a little bit of cobalt teal. And I've suggested this in my other workshops, so if you haven't taken one, you know that I always tend to use colors that I really like, and you know, in the color combinations that I like in my journals, and it makes it really foolproof to make a journal page that you like if you're using colors that you use in your work normally and that you like to use. Also is great for using up leftover paint on your palette if you're working on another project and you have some leftover paint. And you can see right now I'm using my finger as a tool, and I just got it a little bit wet to move that paint around. And fingers make it really, really good tools. You always got one handy. And all I'm doing is adding a little bit of this around the page in a few spots. Doesn't take a lot of it, just a little. Makes a really pretty underlying color. But look at your work and see what colors you use in your work, and try, you know, stick with those color palettes for a while. And you know, it's fun to experiment in your journal. Obviously, great place to do it, to try out new color combinations. But when you're starting out, just stick with what you really love, and you'll love your pages. And with this little head, I'm just going to kind of follow his little head around so that in the end it'll be a little more defined. There. Okay, and I'm going to go around. See how I went around that object? So now I'm going to come over here, go around the word too, and around his hand. Repeat things on your pages, and the repetition ties things in together. So if you do something somewhere, try to do it again. Try to repeat that. Unless it's your standalone object, it's good to repeat it somewhere else on the page. So now we have a little bit of blue on there, and then we'll let that dry. And then we're going to come back and do some stuff on top of it. Okay, the white has dried again, and now I'm taking a blending stump and a charcoal pencil, and I'm going to shade parts of the page, and then we're going to paint over the top of that again. So I'm going to shade, you pick where your light source is going to come from, and I may have mine at the top right coming this way, so I'm going to shade this side of the little face that I have here. Journaling is just a really fun place to practice your shading, and it just adds so much. I'm also, you notice, adding just a touch around this side so that I can define the shape. And that's not shading as much as I just want to pop that little head back out. And that'll help define it so it looks like it's sitting up off of the page just a little. And just use your blending stump to work out the charcoal. And I'm working it from an odd angle here just to show on the video so my hand doesn't get in the way. But if you find that it's a little too you went over your lines a little bit, take a eraser and just clean those back up. It's really easy. And then I'm also going to shade a little bit on his face. Okay, so he's got a little shading, and I'm going to shade over here a little bit. The charcoal just adds such depth to your page. It's my favorite step, I think, because it just really helps define things and make it look like everything's tied together. Shade around my word just a little bit here. And I just work on it with that blending stump. Okay, so we've got that, and now I'm going to add just a little more charcoal to a couple areas, like in my seam. And just pick a couple of spots and mush some charcoal around. And by laying it on its side, you can get really faint little bits of charcoal. Or by using it straight on, then you get scratchy marks. So just, try a couple of different ways of applying a little bit of charcoal. And then over the top of that, I'm going to add some more white. Because remember I said I wanted to have these pages be mostly white, the little color. So I've added color, and then it's just going back and forth over the top to get the look I want. And I just keep playing until I get it the way I want to look. And I go over the charcoal with the white too, and you can still see it underneath. It gives a really cool look. you can see that shadow of it under there. Instead of it just being the charcoal, you end up with the shadow of the charcoal showing through. And I really like that. And just play with your brush, go around things, add some water if it seems too dark, that kind of thing. If you want your, and you can still see the words through. You can see on this whole page, all I've done really is just like put the paint right on top. Right on top. And I'm even going to add just a touch more white over that face because I want it to look all blended in. Just lightly, and then if it's too much, then you just take your finger and kind of rub it. No rules. No rules to journaling. It's really just doing things till it gets to the way that you like it. And, you know, that can be going back and forth over it and layering colors and putting more color until it gets the way you like it. So there, I'm going to add a little more white over this because I really don't want that journaling to show, because remember, I wanted it to be about one. So I want my elements of one to show up more than I want my underwriting to show up. Okay, so we're getting there. And I'm just going to keep playing until I get it to a point where I say that's enough. Okay, so I've like stepped back after that paint got dry. And I'm going to take my charcoal pencil and I'm actually going to shade around what I did with the crayon resist, because I want to bring that back out. And so I'm just very lightly on one side of the letters. Remembering my light source is coming from here. And this is going to be just very, very faint. I don't want a lot of dark on this page. Remember, all about the light on this page. So I'm just going to barely shade. And it'll pop that out just a tad. See, I like that because it'll just show up a little bit. And I'm just going to do that to all the little letters, the Naked Truth letters that I did. So I'll just continue doing that. Just to pop those out a teeny bit and then see where I want to go from there. Okay, so, you know, I just shaded, just like I said, a little bit around the letters, and it's pretty imperfect, but I really like it to look a little sketchy, and so that's what I did with that. What I'm going to do now is I want to add a little more texture to the page, and this is just one of those vegetable bags. This came on Oranges, I think, or something. Just a little mesh plastic bag, and if you leave the thing whole like this, you can just slide it right over your page, and it makes your, if you stencil or stamp over the top of it, or use paint or whatever, and you have a whole page like this, you can randomly do it on this thing, but then your design's consistent all the way through. Your diagonals are consistent all the way down the page. You can obviously, you know, I have some of these that are cut up in little pieces that I use here or there randomly, but it's also nice to leave a few of them big like this. And what I'm going to do is take the little cat's eye Color Box chalk inks. These are really nice and soft looking. I don't want on this necessarily a lot of color, and so I want a little texture though. And I'm going to pick one of the colors, and I think I'm going to use the greenish kind of color. And I'm just going to put my hand on here and randomly in a few areas pat out. And the color that I'm using, I've used a lot, so I know it's fairly dry. That's why you see me pouncing fairly hard. If it was a brand new one, I would just barely pounce because you're going to get a lot of color from that. And I just want a little bit of color. And let's see if this did it. See, I may even need more than that because I don't know. Well, yeah, I guess it did show up a little over here. So you can see the little design that shows up. It's just a hint of it. Like I said, depends on what you're going for. If you're more of a bold person and you want your page to be bold, go bold. If you want it soft and just subtle hints of color, try that. Try a combination. Try some of your pages this month with the nice bold colors, and try some white like this where you're just having little hints of color but your page is mostly white. And find things around the house that you can stencil with. That's something, just to always look at something before you throw it away. See if it's something you could use journaling. Is there a word on that package of food that jumps out at you that would be a good journal prompt? Is there, your kids' schoolwork when they bring it home? Is there something there that, that you think, wow, that's really cool. I'm going to use that in a journal page. It's got some childlike handwriting on it. That's a great thing to use on the background of a journal page. And it preserves that work in an unusual way. But it's there. So we have just a little bit of the random, stenciling with that. Like I said, another layer of texture and interest on your page. I also like to stamp. Let's see if I can find my... Oh, where did my favorite stamp go? Right here. This is actually a Tim Holtz stamp. It's one of my very favorite stamps because it's random already, and I make it even more random with the way that I use it. And you can just pat some ink on here, chalk ink or stays on. The nice thing about the chalk ink is it stays put pretty well too, even with wet medium applied over the top. And when I stamp like this, I only push down on parts of the stamp, like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 spots. I don't push the whole thing down so that you get that exact image down on the page. Just press a couple areas. Pick it up, move it, press a different area. So you're getting just a little hint, but not... That makes that stamp your own. That changes it from being a pre-made stamp into your own design. And I do that with almost every stamp I do. I never hardly ever... I used to be this little perfect stamper person when I was really into stamping, and you had to ink your image just right and all that stuff. Now I don't even clean my stamps. Horror of horrors. And go around that a little bit. And so you can see a little more texture getting put in here. And we've got our words, but my page is still very, very simple, which I like. And let me think here, what else do I want to do to it? Sometimes you have to like stand back a little bit and kind of look at it and decide where do you want to go with it. Do you want to do more or not? And so give it a minute and look at it before you come back. And a lot of times too, I'll work on a page and then I won't come back to it for like a month, and then I'll come back and add something else to it. I go back and forth on my journals all the time. Sometimes I just have a few minutes and I'll pick up a journal and open it to a page and just add something to that page. So take a look at it and see if there's something else you want to do. Okay, looking at my page, I feel like it still needs something else, but I wasn't quite sure what. And I think what I want are some numbers, some bigger numbers. And so I took some numbers, and these are just the clear acrylic stamps, and I just placed them onto a block. And what I did, numbers always mean something. And so depending on the placement of them, this is something I used on another project, and the number 5 was the number that I wanted to emphasize, so I set the number 5 apart from the other numbers so it was off by itself. And I think I'm just going to do the opposite of that for this page and set the number 1 off by itself, because number 1 is what we're concentrating on this project. So there we have like that, and just have that number 1 off by itself. And then I'm going to be, let's see, you can either be bold with your numbers, like I could do them in red and have them just like jump off the page, and that's kind of what you have to think about at this point. Do you want that to show that much, or do you want to play it safe? What do you want to show on there? I think I'm going to downplay it on this instead of doing the bright. And I may add some red, but not from this. It's a little too much. So I'm just using some StazOn ink, and this is Saddle Brown. So I think what I'm going to do is just add my numbers right like this. Think about your placement a little bit and what you want to there. And then I added the numbers there, and I'm going to add them to a different spot on the other side. I'm going to go this way over here. Okay. And then I set that number aside, so I'm going to just take my graphite pencil and kind of circle it loosely, because that's the number I'm emphasizing. And then again with my charcoal pencil and my light coming this way, add a little more shading. And just by doing that, these numbers will sit into the page instead of just resting right on top here. They'll become part of the page once I get them shaded in here. And you can see when I'm shading, all I'm doing is really just drawing a little sketchy line around the outside. And then you just blend it out with your stump. You can see how that will help seat these numbers in there. And that just makes them part of the page. Adds some interest. So I think I'm going to do that and finish shading off the numbers, and then I'm going to look at it again and decide, do I want to go more with that or do I want to leave it? Here's a little close-up. You can see the shading. Okay, so now I've kind of stepped back and looked at it and decided that I want to go I want to knock the numbers down a little bit to be more in keeping with the rest of the page. So let me see if this dauber bottle is going to be, I may need to use a different applicator, but let's see. Let's see, I'm just dabbing on some paint, and I'm going to just kind of, yeah, that'll work. Just kind of move it around on the numbers that are, you know, not the number 1, but at the other numbers. Kind of knock those down a little bit, because remember, my focus for this page is number 1. So knocking these into the background a bit. Yeah, I like that. And then I'm going to go a little bit around that. Love adding the paint right over the top of the charcoal, because it really just, it blends it really nicely. Yeah, I like that better. And then look around your page and see if there's any other areas that you may want to white out a little bit. But yeah, I need, those needed to be knocked down to me. They're a little too standouty. Okay. And I just wipe my finger on the rest of the page somewhere else. All right, now, kind of looking at it still, because I'm not quite sure if I'm done yet, so I'm gonna give it a rest and let it dry for a minute. Okay, I think I'm gonna add a little more of the nickel azo gold, some of it right down the crease. And then this time I'm using a wet wipe, kind of blend that out a bit. This will help with a little bit of an aging look, and you can just kind of pounce. You don't have to blend all of it in. Kind of pounce it. Yeah. And you can kind of get a feel as you go along. You just, it's really all about playing. It's about what you like too. I mean, you don't have to follow any rules. Like I said, journaling is not, journaling's about experimentation. It's not about, you know, creating the perfect page or whatever. You just keep playing until it gets to a point that you like it, and you stop, you know. And then, like I said, even once you stop doesn't mean you can't go back later. You know, if you learn a new technique, or you think something, you know, find something that's perfect for the page, doesn't mean you can't go back and play some more at all. Revisit your pages as much as you want to. And sometimes just that little light touch of reintroducing a color that you've used already is just what you need. This really ages up the page when you add this nickel azo gold to it, like that. And I like these simple pages. This isn't the kind of page I always do, but it's good to step outside your box and try new things, and it's good to you know, experiment around and have your pages be different. And I'm really just kind of liking that the way it is. Very simple. My number was 1 that I wanted to use, and so there. It's always good to add a little color on top of words that you cut out and put, or the other elements in there so they're incorporated in. Anyway, so I'm kind of liking that page, and I'm going to play with this some more. For my first few pages, I'm going to keep with a really simple theme, and just let the paint be, you know, let one word or one image be the statement of the page. And I like having the journaling underneath there. So, you know, take time when you're doing the under journaling to, you know, use that time to write your words, and try painting over them this time. Doesn't mean you can't go back later also and write over the top of it. And if you like a lot of words on your pages, you know, add more at the end. But for me, for this page, I'm thinking that I like it, and I think that will be done for me. So play with your pages. I'm really excited to see what you guys all come up with, and use some of the techniques we showed, use some more techniques, whatever you want. Make do with what you have. You know, try some different things, and try making do with some things that you already have. And you know what? While I'm talking to you, I just saw something that I think I want to do. This is the paper that I cut, that I took that image from, and then before I had cut out an image, and I'm kind of thinking underneath truth, I'm kind of thinking I want to put his little head under there. So I'm just going to take a cat's eye chalk ink and use this as a stencil and go around the outside edge with a couple of colors. Yes, I did just lick my finger there. I can't believe I did that on camera, but I did. I licked my finger and I put it on the journal, but it's my journal, right? So I can lick in my own journal. Can't believe I just did that. Okay, so I've got that, and I want, let me see here. I don't want that brown to be quite so brown. And I think there, I've kind of got the little outline of his head, and then if I shade the one side, I'm thinking I might like that. So anyway, so it's all about looking, like I said, you know, you don't, I'm totally randomly doing this in front of you guys just to show you that there aren't rules, and that there are no set fast things that you do. It's not like doing an art project. It's doing something completely different for experimentation, and totally by whim of what you decide looks good or doesn't look good. And I'm going to wipe. It's a little dark to me, so let's wipe a little of it off. And so I'll play with that a little bit, because I'm thinking I like that, and I think I may add an actual, I think I may add a body out of that. So you can totally see the process at work. You sit and look at something and see something in there, or see something sitting on your table. There. And then, you know, play with it. I'm going to use the paint on this side. Let's leave the camera on so you can see what I'm doing. This, yeah. Very cool. So I'm just going to add this little person, basically. And then I'll probably just outline, do a little detail that way and have my little faceless person. I may even add a little hair like I would normally. It's really just about playing at this point. I mean, I'm just like totally ad-libbing. There we go. I'm liking that. And you could add a face in or have no face, depending on what you want to do. And I'm not really sure what I want to do yet, but for now I think I'm going to leave that. And I think, not liking how brown the face is, so add more white. There. Yeah, I like that. So it's just really all about playing. All about playing. Reintroduce colors, take them away. And create your pages. So anyway, you may see a little bit more added to this when I post the actual pictures to the class, because I may come back later and decide I want something more. But for now, play with the techniques I showed you and add some of your own, and let's see what you guys come up with. And remember, try to go with the journal prompt for at least one of your pages this time of one, and try to keep things very simple, and just think of one main item for your page. All right, thanks. Okay, I came back a little bit later and I added just a tad bit more to her face. You can, just a little more detail. Not a lot.